In this week's episode of the Keeping Everything Simple podcast, we're going to dive into what to do when you aren't sure where your career is going, if you're laid off, been unemployed for a while, and some tips and tricks that you can use to hopefully get yourself back into the workforce and get to that next stage of your career. Keeping everything simple, let's jump right in. If you're following me on social media, which I recommend you do, KES Studios at Instagram, I am currently out of a job, and that is a stressful point in time. So it's not the first time, and at the same, I probably don't expect it to be the last either, but it's not exactly a comforting place to be. However, I was able to buy myself some peace of mind, and that brings me to point number one here, which is first and foremost, if you're not sure what your next stage of your career is going to be, if you're unsure if you're going to actually have your job still, worried about layoffs, whatever it is, have an emergency fund. And this is one of the most common pieces of financial advice that you will probably see anywhere in terms of financial planning and emergency planning. It's just an emergency fund is, I believe, universally agreed upon as a good thing to have. Now, the general average recommendation is have about 3 to 6 months worth of your expenses saved up. That tends to be a pretty good number. And the important thing to note whenever I say that 3 to 6 month savings is you have to keep in mind your position, your lifestyle, and what that means for you. So someone who lives at home still and is saving up a lot of money, their 3 to 6 months savings probably looks very different than someone who has a house, has a mortgage, and has maybe kids, pets, whatever it is. Their 3 to 6 months is going to look very different. So you have to be able to put away money for that rainy day and save yourself, some of the trouble. It's what I call buying peace of mind, because it's something that you actually truly can do as long as you are properly keeping track of your 3 big expenses. So your housing, your food, and transportation, those 3 big things, and then all the miscellaneous ones that come into it. Just keep those in mind and really focus on getting those 3 to 6 months saved up. It depends on your risk level as well. Some people only want a month. Some people, want upwards of a year and a half, whatever it is. You just want to buy that peace of mind in the event that you get unemployed or you get laid off for any reason whatsoever, or you even want to switch careers and take a look at a new opportunity. So that's my number one recommendation, first and foremost, in facing unemployment or switching jobs, being laid off. Have 3 to 6 months saved up before any of this comes to pass. Next thing here is that if you are leaving willingly, so you are voluntarily resigning from your job, or you're being laid off, whatever it is, I highly recommend, and this comes from my personal experience, is that you leave on good terms. Please don't burn the bridges that you may have to look back to and cross in the future. And again, I speak from experience on this, knowing that, and I'm still not exactly proud of it, giving a condolences card as my 2 weeks notice to one of my employers in the past. That's something I talk about frequently, and why it's so important that I did that, and it was a mistake, one which I've learned from, and one that I encourage you all not to repeat, but instead to leave on good terms. Leave while you are still having a positive relationship with your boss, with your coworkers, with your team, whatever it is. As opposed to when I was working in retail, I left on poor terms with my boss at that point in time, versus when I was working in manufacturing, I left on good terms with my boss and my team. And to the point in which they still offered me the opportunity to come back in the event that something didn't work out, I wasn't able to find a new opportunity somewhere else. They still said, hey, if you would like to, and if things work out in the way that it'd be possible to, you can come back. That is why it's so important that you don't burn the bridges that you may one day have to cross again. And to even further that, my recent company that I was working at as a contract recruiter, that team is trying to get my resume out to clients, put my resume in front of people, in front of decision makers who might be able to get me my next job, my next gig, my next step in my career. And that is from leaving on good terms, knowing that I enjoyed working with that team, and I'm thankful that the team had a good time working with me. And that's what makes it so important that if you are, again, voluntarily resigning, if you're being laid off, if you're hoping to switch careers or switch jobs, leave on good terms. I cannot stress that enough. Don't repeat the mistakes I made, especially when it's something that you can so easily avoid by taking the proper steps and going through the proper channels. I also highly recommend that you do actually take some time and do a clarification exercise. And so what I mean by this is I made a video on the clarification exercise, which you can check that out as well. But it is really getting down into the nitty-gritty details about what you want from a job, what you want from a career, why you want it. And when I say the nitty-gritty details, I mean get specific, super, super specific. A good example for this is for myself. I was trying to think through, and I did the math for it, even looked at an online calculator of what is the salary I need to make before taxes to be able to take home $45,000 to $50,000 a year after taxes. What's that look like on a monthly basis? What's that look like on an hourly basis? So I would have that information on hand for when it's time to do a job search and I'm trying to, get more intentional about what the actual parameters are. What's my salary expectation? Do I want on-site? Did I want remote? Did I want hybrid? And it's, again, getting into these details. So I recommend that you think about, again, the three biggest pieces here. So if we're going back to the emergency fund, it's then transportation, housing, and food. Those are financial components. One's a travel component. So thinking through, okay, how much do you need to spend on average to maintain your current lifestyle? How would you make that money before taxes and after taxes? How far would you want to commute? Because for myself, knowing that, okay, if I can have a hybrid role or an on-site role, that'd be preferable. Remote work would be cool in terms of flexibility. However, I also know that I love the chance to interact with my coworkers. And so I want then an on-site or hybrid role. You may want something different. And that's the point of doing this clarification exercise, is that it allows you and enables you to get into the heart of what you actually want and why you want it to begin with. And another reason why this exercise is so good is because this is an intentional practice. It's intentionally taking time to think, what do I want? Why do I want it? Why do I need this? And how does this improve my life? How does it improve my next job prospects? Because it's intentional. And this is versus what I've seen a lot of people do, and while I was working as a recruiter, heard a lot of people doing, was just kind of the spray and pray method of, let me do quick apply here and here and here, and then let me submit an application here and here and here. And then by the end of the week, they had no clue what they applied for. They're getting callbacks, and they don't know who in the world is calling them. They don't remember what they applied to. They ask us and say, okay, can you tell me which one it was? Because I submitted so many applications that I don't fully remember what this one was. And that's not a place you want to be in. That is not how you want to go about your job search, especially because you may end up in one field that you absolutely hate, and you would never know, because if you're not paying attention to what you're applying to, you're not taking time to figure out what parameters you want, you're going to have to just take whatever comes your way. And that is, in my opinion, a recipe for disaster, especially long term. You may end up on a career path that you don't want to be on, distinctly because you weren't being intentional and you weren't paying attention to what you were applying to and why you were applying to it to begin with. The next point here is pretty simple, in that you should take time to update your resume, proofread it once, twice, maybe even 3 times, because I submitted I updated my resume and I missed 3 typos. That doesn't sound like much, unless you're considering the fact that I was applying for an HR specialist-based role. And that is where I have to think about, how does this reflect on me? How does it reflect on, my skill set? Not just the fact that, oh, cool, the resume looks nice. It's the finer details. So update your resume, because there can be gaps in work history, and that is technically okay. That's not something that I want you to stress about. Like, maybe you haven't worked in 4 months, which I did in the past. Maybe you haven't worked in like 6 months because of family emergencies or other responsibilities. Maybe you went back to school. It's this time to update it. It's taking that time to update that resume, because that helps reflect on you. It shows that you are keeping track of this stuff. You're trying to make it easy for the recruiter, the hiring team, whoever it is. And it's going to make your application that more appealing, because, again, as opposed to you throwing out an application or resume that you haven't updated in 4 years, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm still working at this work study job at university, and maybe you graduated a couple years ago, then it doesn't make sense. So update it and keep track of it. Keep it on hand so that way, in the event that you get asked questions, you are able to answer about, oh, I worked here for this point in time. This is what I did. This is why I left. And just, it's going to make your life so much easier. So please, please, please update your resume and proofread it. Have someone double check it, because there can be small details that, again, reflect on you. And if you're not able to catch them, then it doesn't exactly bode well in terms of those first impressions, because sometimes that resume is the only first impression you get to make. So keep that in mind when you update your resumes. Not only that, it also has the added benefit that you will have more, appropriate or more, I would say, related callbacks at this point if you have an updated resume, because then people are able to think, oh, cool, they have this experience in the past year, past 6 months. That's fantastic. What more can I learn about them from this resume? What are their skill sets? What are their education? It's just keeping it up to date, because, again, going back to the intentional application versus that spray and pray method, if you're intentionally doing this, you're intentionally highlighting what you need to. And I don't mean going crazy about this and like making a different resume for every single job application, but it does mean having that intentionality will help you get more distinguished and reputable callbacks, as opposed to just having random people calling you about your application because they saw one thing on there or maybe a couple of things that maybe kind of matched. And then instead, this helps you think, okay, I really want this job. How can I get this resume in front of that person and make it look presentable and make it look like a good opportunity for them and for me? And I think you can clearly hear I am not a fan of the spray and pray method. If you want volume, sure, but also you can have volume and still be intentional about your job application. So I stress this. Be mindful, do that clarification exercise, update your resumes, and just be intentional with it. Don't just leave it up to chance. Because then in those instances, that chance may not be the one you're looking for. The other part here is that you need to take care of yourself physically and mentally. So when I mentioned earlier about buying some peace of mind, that's great in helping reduce some of the stress levels, especially if you have some runway to work with, especially in terms of finances. However, take care of yourself physically too. As I've been documenting my unemployment journal on YouTube and on Instagram, you're seeing me still go to the gym. I'm still trying to get my steps in. I'm still actually eating healthy too. I'm not just, letting my kind of worry and concern get the better of me in terms of what I'm eating and how I'm taking care of my body, because the important thing here is that you only have one. If you get sick, if you feel unwell in the midst of all this because of the stress, because of the anxiety, then you're going to have a harder time jumping back right into work, because if you're sick and you get an offer and you're like, oh, I can't start for the next week, I can't start for the next 2 weeks because I'm recovering, that's going to be a harder sell. But at the same time, it's just going to feel worse for you. And you want to make sure that you actively feel at your best. Ultimately, it does help just a lot if you've checked the boxes of keeping yourself healthy too, in the process of finding a new job, in the process of going through unemployment. And this is just my personal opinion here, but if you're able to continually balance out that physical health, that mental health, that's going to provide you with better clarity as to what jobs you might actually want to do, as opposed to letting panic get the best of you and thinking, I just need something, I'm not going to be able to pay rent. It's instead trying to think through, okay, I need something, that is true. I need to move with urgency, but I also have the peace of mind and some clarity, and I don't feel like I'm drowning to be able to say, I need to move with urgency. I need this type of pay. I need this type of job, or I want this type of job. How can I get there? And that's why I encourage you then to eat right, get exercise, get plenty of sleep, and also please, again, please don't bottle this up. Talk to someone about your stress. If you need to do free counseling, do that. If you just need to talk to one of your friends, your siblings, families, whoever it is, take time to actively also get that stress out of your system in some way, somehow. And this also then encourages you to take time to rest as well, where it's the same as if you're going to the gym. You can't go every single day and lift heavy weights, do powerlifting or do supersets, and then think that you're going to not damage your body in some way, because there are limits to what we can do. There's limits to what we can handle. And there's obviously points in which pushing those limits leads to muscle growth or leads to us developing further. There's also a point in which too much of anything is a bad thing. So let yourself rest. When I had my contract end, I literally just took a day or two. So it was over the weekend. I still started filming everything again, but it wasn't me feeling like I need something right away. I need to do this. It was instead taking a breath, taking those 2 days to let myself reorient and think, okay, that was a fun experience. What can I take away from this? What does that path closing lead me to next? What guidance can I use from that as a marker on my journey? And I could only think about that because I allowed myself some time to actually rest. And again, if you're following me on Instagram, which again, KES Studios, I took the weekend and I cleaned. I did a deep clean of my living room. I hit IKEA so I could get an extra piece of furniture. I got caught up on laundry, dishes, cleaned my kitchen. And this is just my way of relaxing and getting myself, in a better headspace while making sure that I'm still moving around physically and helping to get those outlets of stress or anxiety, to be useful to me. And as I mentioned, having those conversations with friends, family about stress, I also need to encourage you then to reach out to your network, because opportunities present themselves to those who prepare. And sometimes preparation looks like having an honest conversation with a mentor, with a friend, with just people throughout your network that you probably have already established that you just need to take more advantage of. And I understand it's scary to be out of a job, because right now I'm scared about what the next, couple months will look like, because I don't want to be out of work again for a couple of months. I did that previously last year where I took a sabbatical for 4 months, and that was a great experience because it allowed me to really get over my burnout, reset, launch YouTube channel again, start the podcast again, and just all these good things. However, within that fear, within that anxiety, it wasn't me then begging for jobs. If I was reaching out to my network, it was for advice, it was for support. It was if people wanted to send something my way, I more than welcomed it and more than encouraged it too, because that is the point of the network. It is there to support you, it's there to help you, and if you are building a quality network to begin with, then that's going to make it that much easier to find your next opportunity without feeling like you're begging them for something or anything. And not only that, by again having those honest conversations with them, you can kind of bring them into what you're thinking about in terms of your next job as to why does this make sense to me? Why does this role make sense? Or what do I really want to do for my career? So for example while I've been talking to people within my own network, it's thinking, okay, I want to help coach people. I want to help be a consultant. I want to help people like me within my age demographic, but then also older too, but ultimately working professionals who don't know where they want to go next. And that's something that my long-term goal is looking like. And I need to get more and more narrow on that. But by sharing that within my network, people are able to send me ideas or jobs that kind of relate to that. And I can think, okay, this gives me an extra pair of eyes that's helping me find my next opportunity without making it feel like you're begging, because that's the hardest thing to do more often than not, is asking for help first and foremost when you know you can't do it on your own. And this is why I'm stressing my disdain for that spray and pray method, is that you have to take initiative. I applaud you for taking initiative to apply to jobs, because that is good. That is the first step in getting yourself back out to work. However, when I say take the initiative, I mean the other steps before this. That emergency fund, the clarification exercise, updating your resume, reaching out to your network. Take the initiative to do these actions, because that's going to help you get to a better spot. Now, my saying is you can't help those who won't help themselves, and that's true. You can only help someone so much who doesn't actually have the drive, have the initiative to want to take that next step themselves. And ultimately, it's going to be up to you to get yourself back on track, so that way you're the one in the driver's seat, not someone else, not some off chance, resume or application that you sent in. It's taking the initiative to take control of your next opportunity, trying to use that to the best of your ability. And this is trying to understand that everyone comes from different points and different walks of life. So your urgency may be very different than mine. Again, you may have kids and you have to get them to school. You have to be able to put food on the table. And that is trying to take in consideration that if you are still following the first couple of steps here, it's going to make those points and those times of uncertainty a lot less volatile and a lot less scary. That's why if you're unemployed now, or if you're worried you're going to be unemployed either through layoffs or resignations, whatever it is, build your emergency fund 3 to 6 months on average, whatever your risk or tolerance is for that. Then update your resume. Make sure you're getting it in front of the right people. Clarification exercise if you are getting into the nitty-gritty details about how much you want to make, how far you want to commute, what field you want to be in even, what salary you want, what type of team you want. Just get into the nitty-gritty details about it. Take initiative as well to do those first couple of steps, and then also to apply to the right jobs, not just any job, but finding ones that at least meet the mark, maybe to like 70%, 80%, and that last 30 or 20% is stuff you can learn, or maybe stuff that you want to learn. And then taking care of your mind and your body, because you only have one, and if you aren't taking care of it in a way that you feel fulfilled and that you feel in your best shape, then it's gonna be a lot harder to still feel like you can jump right into the next job, or to even keep your eyes out for the right opportunity. Be sure you check out my video on how I use the clarification exercise to update my LinkedIn job search and get a lot more in depth with that. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. It helps my channel out so much. And then comment down below, how would you prepare if you knew you were going to be unemployed? What would you do? So I want to have you guys share ideas with each other, so that way there's more information out there, because my ideas are just mine, and that does not mean it's the only way. If you're listening to this on Spotify or any other podcast platform, make sure that you do leave us a rating. It helps share the show with other people just like you. Have an amazing day, you amazing people, and I will see you all in the next video.